But let's talk about the games that we were at this week, Mitch, because speaking of the Polar Bears, they played host to the McKinley Bulldogs on Friday night, and there was a lot of buildup going into that game. It was senior night. It was a packed house over that stadium. It was my first time over there. You guys have a lot of good facilities over there and a good crowd there to match it.
Not good cell service.
Not good cell service. No, that was frustrating. First of all, it was frustrating. My phone was at 20% when we got there, so I had to put on an energy saver the whole time, and it was hard for me to keep up the battery. And it actually died right as you dropped me off before we left to go home. And yeah, it was tough to like check the other scores because I couldn't get a good reception out there. And we even brought the hotspot.
We were at the hotspot, Mitch. You literally watched my phone stop accepting text messages saying I got signed out across all my devices. Like that's how bad it was getting.
Yeah,
and extremely frustrating. And then I'm there to get an interview, and the phone dies. It's just like this is unfortunate, but we were there. We were able to take some things away from that game on what was a beautiful, crisp autumn night.
That's the night. That's the sort of night that we were taking in. And then once the weekend hit, it was like this cold front, that chill front that came in and, kind of dropped it down to where, I have to start wearing hoodies on a regular basis. And I wear hoodies in here, but that's because it's in room temperature. But now I have to wear it outside as well. But we went to that game, and it's not that you want to say it was a bad football game, but it was just kind of sort of a one where there wasn't a lot of energy being built up between the two teams. And there were a number of errors that happened throughout the game. And first of all, happened in the first drive of the game where McKinley is facing, what was it, second down, third down, and they had multiple snaps go awry past Keaton Road on Friday night. But this one, they were able to get bailed out on. He picks up the ball and then rolls to his right and finds, as you mentioned, with all the safeties and the lineman rushing, finds an open receiver down the field. He goes all the way for like a 60-some yard touchdown. They start off the game hot there. Jackson, I'll give him credit for, because McKinley missed the point after because they've been struggling with that all season. Jackson went down the field, and for a team that's really embraced the pass more this season than they have in years past, they were able to get some good rushes down the field. And the name escapes me, with the player who was starting his running back for the first time that Friday night. Kyle Benson had a number of good drives down the field to put Jackson briefly on top.
Yeah, Mitch, Jackson decided to change some things up, and hard to blame them. They had lost 2 in a row coming off that tough loss at Lake. And then last week, the loss to Glen Oak, or 2 weeks ago now, rather. They had to shake something up because this McKinley team, although they're prone to turning the ball over, as we've seen in numerous games this year, or letting teams back into the game, Jackson just has not been able to run the ball effectively. And typically we saw this, looking ahead a little bit, we saw this in Ohio State Saturday. You try to get the ball in your playmakers' hands as much as possible. And Kyle Benson's been a playmaker. He's one of the 3 guys on the outside that have been consistent all year long for Eckerman and the Polar Bear offense, both him, Calando, Fueline, Andrews out there as well. So it didn't surprise me when the running game's just unfortunately not been the best. This is also a team, though, Mitch, that, let's remember, lost one of the top running backs in Stark County from last year, and Jason Davide also graduated a number of offensive linemen from last year. So it's a whole new, I feel like if you lose one of the two, that's okay. You're typically going to be able to fix it. To lose both, that's a tough hole. And so Kyle Benson played running back, and he did have a couple nice runs, and really helped Jackson for the first time, I feel like, in quite some time this year, control the clock, control the pace of the game a little bit, because they were able to run for a little bit. But then the inexperience of the offensive line showed up as the game went on. McKinley's defensive line at 10 sacks, I believe, was the final tally. So now, Mitch, you're talking about 2 games in the past 3 weeks where the opposing team has had 10 sacks at Lake and then home against McKinley. That it doesn't matter how talented you are elsewhere. If that's what's going to happen, you're not going to win many more football games. And I thought the Jackson defense, though, for the most part, Mitch, they played really well, because McKinley scored on 2 broken plays. And afterwards, actually, when you read any of the articles that Coach Hall, excuse me, name was like escaped me there for a second. Coach Antonio Hall for the Bulldogs said tonight we were more lucky than we were good. And Mitch, it's hard not to agree with him. You and I were there. We saw the first play that ends up going all the way down inside the 10. McKinley's first drive, snap over Keaton Road's head. Everybody's going after the ball. The safeties start crashing because it looks like that. Keaton Road picks it up, has the awareness to look downfield, tosses a strike, and then Mitch, the one in the third quarter or fourth quarter.
Yeah.
The awareness of Nino Hill, I think is what you have to talk about. Like, yes, it was over the quarterback's head. It was way over this time. And Nino Hill, the running back who was back there with him, alertly goes and gets it, turns around and almost does like a 3-yard shovel pass that goes to the house because it was another broken play. And that's what Coach Hall was meaning. Like, yeah, Nino Hill made a heads up play. Like, that was great. But the ball bounced a certain way for him to be able to get it when it was loose.
Well, yeah.
And so we're more lucky than good tonight.
Well, Hill's pass was the shovel to Dante McClellan, who went 53 yards, but that set up Road getting into the end zone a few plays later. And yeah, but that was one of the instances where they just were able to recover after it seemed like disaster was about to strike. And as you mentioned, Jackson wasn't able to build anything up after Carson Pistorius found the end zone in that first drive. 10 sacks, you mentioned, just seemed like they weren't able. There were so many punts. Just so many punts. It looked like a Vanderbilt. Was it Vanderbilt that had that meme that happened this week where the punter had like 11,000 career yards? It doesn't matter. The point was McKinley did what they had to do. They have to look more impressive, though, not just in the Massillon game a couple weeks from now, but next week they have the chance to win the Federal League title outright in their game against the Golden Eagles, which we'll be there for on Big Time Sports.